We're talking hockey. It's opening day of NHL training camps. Let's bring in Scott Laughlin, our good friend from SiriusXM NHL Radio. And Scott, I'm going to jump right into it. The breaking news today, Brad Marchand is the newest captain of the Boston Bruins. Does that surprise you or not?
It doesn't really surprise me, Rod. I think that we had been building towards this. They had been building towards this. I think that what we needed to see from him was just not the productivity on the ice, but we have to acknowledge and maybe give him some credit for the way he's turned around his career, right? He's not going out there. He's not licking players anymore. He's not being a sideshow. He's really not only progressed with his game on the ice, but I think in terms of leadership, and I think what he brings to the table in terms of his veteran experience, I think it's something that Bruins team direly needs right now. When you lose Patrice Bergeron and you lose David Krejci, I guess Charlie McAvoy would be a consideration perhaps down the road to take the seat perhaps from 63, whenever it's said and done. But this guy is one of their best players still. And more than that, like I said, he's been disciplined the last couple of years, and that's key to his game and leadership values as well.
Good answer. Good answer. Now, what stories are you following in training camp the most, or are you just looking ahead to the regular season already? I mean, it's like Christmas, I would think, with training camps opening. Are there some stories on top of mind for you?
Well, I think some of the stories that we were maybe expecting to talk more about during the offseason have dragged into the start of the preseason and maybe into the regular season as well a couple of weeks from now, Rod, because we have been talking for the longest time about Calgary and what is new general manager Craig Conroy going to do with all those expiring contracts, and talking about Lindholm and talking about Hannafin and players like that. What can, if anything, be done to keep those players around, or do you have to move them out? Same thing, obviously, with Chevy and Winnipeg in terms of Scheifele and Connor Hellebuck. Are they coming? Are they going? How long does this drag on? I think that if you're the Winnipeg Jets, you want to make a move sooner rather than later. I don't necessarily think that you can roll the dice and hope that these guys maybe will factor into the long-term plans of your team if they haven't signed on by now. I guess Kevin Cheveldayoff is thinking if we can win to start off out of the gate. It's a new-look Jets team. There have been some key figures, obviously, that have been moved out. Blake Wheeler at the end of the road, of course, gets moved off to the Rangers. They get the return on Pierre-Luc Dubois, and they're hoping that those puzzle pieces can fit as well. I guess the hope is, especially when it comes to Connor Hellebuck, is that you win to start off the season, you have some success, and you make him realize that the goalie market maybe isn't what it used to be in terms of getting paid, almost like the NHL's version of the running back position in the NFL. It's undervalued right now. The guys aren't going to strike it rich. And maybe if you factor all those in to the equation and have some success to start the season in Winnipeg, maybe that convinces Connor Hellebuck that maybe the Jets are indeed the best place for him to be.
Well, what's interesting is you started saying Chevy's waiting and seeing, and you ended saying Hella is waiting and seeing, and that's what I think it is. I think both of them are saying if this goes well, he doesn't mind staying. He just wants to win, and maybe Scheifele's in the same boat. You remember him 2 off seasons ago saying, I need to see if this is the right fit for me. That's the new player, folks. He's the poster boy for the way they look at things. So maybe it all depends. Maybe everybody's waiting on that.
Well, as the late John Madden used to say, and you remember this, Rod, I mean, winning is the best deodorant, right? So anything that maybe is rankling you playing in a particular city with a particular team, if you win, everything starts to smell brighter, your food starts to taste a little bit better, and maybe you've got a hope there. Look, I think that Hellebuck in particular is the most important piece for them to keep that ship going in the right direction. I think that he was looking for Vasilevsky-type money, and I think the reality is that today's environment in the National Hockey League, Vegas has proven you can play 5 goalies and go on to win a Stanley Cup. And I think maybe the dream of getting Vasilevsky-type money and getting that type of a contract maybe is just not going to be there for him at this stage. So maybe you just re-up with the Jets. You get what you can get. You get a bit of a raise, but maybe not what you were entirely anticipating. And maybe, as they say, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. It'll look a lot better for him in Winnipeg, certainly if they get off to a great start this season.
You talk NHL every day, and you're in Canada. I want your take on this, if you don't mind. We had 7 burning questions yesterday, 1 for each Canadian team, and one was, how long will Habs fans remain patient? I have the sense that they're patient. Have I misread that? And how would you answer that?
I think they've probably got one more season here to have sort of that honeymoon period as far as the rebuild goes. I don't think that anybody in Montreal is expecting or should be expecting that team to be a playoff team right now. And oh, by the way, Rod, I think we'd all agree they're probably in the toughest division in all of hockey, right? Top to bottom. I think 5 teams are coming out of the Atlantic Division, including the defending Eastern Conference champion Florida Panthers. So I think that division is stacked. I think Montreal is making progress. I think clearly that when you look at Buffalo and Ottawa and Detroit even, they're in front of Montreal at this stage. So you want to see further progression. You'd like to see Juraj Slafkovsky stay healthy, get out there and be productive and show what made him the top pick overall just a couple of years ago. You'd like to see further progression from Cole Caulfield. Can you pencil him in for 40 this season? I don't think that that's too much to ask. So I think that it really is still a work in progress. I don't think that they're quite there yet, and I think Montreal fans would and should realize that. I think next season is where you start to say, okay, Marty St. Louis, it's been a great story. We've got some great young players here, but next season, Rod, I think is where they really push up on the playoffs in the Eastern Conference.
Right. That sounds reasonable to me. And I have watched warm-ups here in Sunrise from ice level, and the Habs were the youngest team. I don't know if statistically they were the youngest team, but they were the youngest looking team of any team that came through there. I'm like, this is the best American Hockey League team or major junior team I've ever seen. So they're ridiculously young, and they do love their coach, which means a lot. Just for fun, our official betting partner is Bet Regal, Scott, and they've set the over-under for Connor Bedard's rookie point total at 69.5 points this season. You taking the over or the under on that?
I'm going just over, I think, Rod, on that one. I'm in that boat that thinks maybe that sweet spot for him is going to be 35 goals and 75 points. I think that would be realistic. I think a lot of the time, too, we want to compare him to other generational talents that came before him. And, I think back to Sidney Crosby, because Bedard's coming in with Chicago the way that Crosby came in with Pittsburgh. He's expected to turn things around. But we even saw with Sid that, in his first season, he had 102 points, but they missed the playoffs. So I think he's going to have a real productive individual season. But I think, obviously, Chicago's far from being a playoff team in the Western Conference, in the Central Division as well, pushing up on it. So I think the advantage that a guy like Crosby had, too, let's not forget, too, Rod, when he came into the NHL, they were coming off the work stoppage. They had clamped down on obstruction penalties, hooking, holding, interference, those sorts of things. Power plays were just being handed out like Oprah's book club for a while in the NHL back then, right? You get a power play, you get a power play. All of a sudden, the offense went up. Now there are not as many power plays in the NHL, I think, by way of comparison to when Sid came in with the Pittsburgh Penguins. So I think 35 and 75 is a realistic goal for Connor Bedard, and I'd be disappointed if he doesn't get there.
Yeah. Well, his hat trick on the weekend certainly opened some eyes to make people realize that he can do it.
It didn't slow down the hype train at all,
no,
did it?
It did not. Scott, I have more, but we're out of time. I hope we can do it again soon. Keep up the great work. As you know, I love listening to you. If you ever need anything from Sunrise, let me know.
We will be calling. Thanks very much, Rod.
SiriusXM Scott Laughlin joining us from the Big Smoke.